Cheers, guys. Epic's here. Welcome to VR Raw, episode 10. Just like that, weekend over, work week back. But just like the weekend's gone, the work week soon will be gone. Guys, it'll be weekend again and Gaming Friday. So it's all good. Some interesting things we're going to discuss today. I want to start with gaming stuff, and we'll tie it all together, but specifically massively multiplayer online gaming. Also had another request from the VR Roundtable guys. We'll chat about that. We'll chat the MMO. We'll chat Star Citizen, which again, MMO kind of ties into that. And then we'll end things off chatting about the Vive Pro. But let's start off. So VR Roundtable, I was asked to sit in again in a couple of weeks. And guys, I mentioned this last week, but really enjoyed that. And it's not that I don't enjoy this. I do. But forgive the analogy, guys. When I'm speaking with you guys, and I've said this before, it's like speaking with a buddy, but you're my passed out buddy at a house party who's not talking back to me. You do in the comment section, but that's kind of when you wake up the next morning from the house party. It's great. Thanks for your comments. Appreciate them. But you kind of missed the party because, well, you passed out. With these guys, it was live, real time, and we'll do that with some streaming for sure in the future. But it was just an interesting dynamic. So looking forward to that. In fact, 2 days ago on Saturday, so they start filming at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 3 p.m. Atlantic. And I looked at the clock and I said, man, those guys are starting right now. It'd be so much fun yapping with them again. So yeah, looking forward to that. If you haven't watched this channel from, before it was a VR channel, you'd think I was super antisocial and not into social VR. But online stuff has never bothered me. In fact, I loved it. Probably too much. So we'll kind of tie it all together, like I said, but rewind to the late 80s, kind of early 90s. Exidy and I have our Commodore 64s mid-80s and our Amigas. We had modems. This was before the internet. We're talking about a decade before. But let's be real here. We used those modems for pretty nefarious tasks, right? They were basically there to serve a main purpose. The secondary purposes were cool, right? The chatting on BBSs, but we were there for the wares. That was it, plain and simple. Something interesting started happening in the late 80s. They started to have these online games. Now, BBSs have had these for a while, but the problem was it was kind of like mail order. And because things didn't happen in real time on a BBS, so you would dial into a BBS. Some BBSs had multiple modem banks, and you could, up to a half a dozen, even a dozen people on some of the bigger ones, you could kind of all interact in real time. But for the most part, the smaller BBSs, you would dial in, and then that was kind of it. You would do all your stuff, and then you would basically exit, wait for other people to log in again the next day, and then you'd have the results of everything that transpired. So it was kind of, I used the analogy, it was essentially like mail order. A little bit faster than mail order, but like that. Well, those games got more and more sophisticated. Fast forward a little bit, we're now in the early 90s, and they've got a proliferation of MUDs. So MUDs were basically text-based, and there was some graphical ones based on the D&D Gold Box series. What the heck was it called? Was it Neverwinter? Because I think they borrowed that name when they did Neverwinter Nights. Anyways, it was based on the Gold Box games. It was a graphical MUD. But before that, they were text-based. You would log in, and it was like playing World of Warcraft or EverQuest, except more Zork-like, text-based, right? But you had characters, you could advance. In short, it was a lot of fun. Well, then something happened. We kind of kept track. We never really got into them. That one that I mentioned, the D&D one, Meridian 69, was that the name? Meridian something or other for the Apple was huge as well. It was a space-based RPG. The big one for us was Ultima Online. We loved the Ultima series in the 80s, early 90s, the first VGA one with Ultima 6 and then 7. They were going to do Ultima online. This is Lord British. This was post Electronic Arts purchasing them. Little did we know it would be the last good game, decent game that Lord B was involved in. It changed absolutely everything. Playing that game was it was mind-blowing. You were with a bunch of other people around the world via modem in real time, interacting, usually getting ganked a lot because PvP just was an infestation, but we loved it, right? It was so much fun. Then there was EverQuest. And this will tie into VR, guys, but EverQuest was Ultima Online, but first person. Look at it now, and it literally looks like somebody took a bowl of pea soup, splashed it against the monitor. Horrible looking. The textures are so primitive. The original vanilla graphics, how it launched, right? The user interface was abysmal, and it was the most horribly broken game this side of Battlecruiser 3000 AD. Derek Smart, I'm looking right at you. In short, bad, really bad. But I hate to use that analogy. Back in my day, we'd, walk up hills in snowstorms both ways. But that's what it was like. We didn't care about all the bugs. It was so addicting, EverQuest. They perfected that ding. Every time you would level, you would hear this ding, and your character grew, and it was it got to a point, guys, I would come home from work and I was changing as I was walking up to my computer to play. Let's just say that wasn't tolerated after a certain point and it caused a lot of friction. Then we had World of Warcraft where I did the exact same thing all over again until I finally said, okay, enough is enough. I can't be Bubble Boy and playing this that much. That's how much I played these. That is the main reason I'm just not that into the social stuff. Part of me almost doesn't want it to be good for that reason. Now, can I control that? Of course I can control it. And when that next big MMO comes out, I definitely want to be part of that on virtual reality. The chat stuff is great, and it's an element of that, a snapshot of that. But when somebody comes out with the next World of Warcraft, whatever that will be in virtual reality, yeah, that's probably going to be it for me. Knowing me, I'll get into it all over again. Hopefully, a little bit more self-discipline, but that is kind of the dream. So where are we at right now? Well, we've got games that call themselves massively multiplayer games. And I thought about typing up a list and going through a whole bunch with you guys, but there's nothing really that stands out, jumps out at me, that comes anywhere even close to approaching the complexity. And the reason for that, most of us know already, critical mass. We don't have the install base for any of the big boys or girls who do the programming to say, you know what? It's a worthy investment to create a World of Warcraft or an EverQuest for VR. Not going to happen with the current market situation. So you're left to kind of indie devs, and bless them, there's some decent stuff out there. But as far as I'm concerned, and when I say I got into these games, and this is kind of really where it ties in, I can't kind of underscore that enough. I really got into them, like the high level part. If you know the terminology, epic loot, epic raiding guilds, high tier, that's what I did. So I would have a schedule. Well, Tuesday it was this raid, Thursday this raid, Saturday this raid, and woe to the person that would interrupt me in real life while I was at a raid. I mean, it was ridiculous, right? But fun as hell when I was in it, but ridiculous for anybody looking in at me in that bubble boy phase. So that's why I don't get quite as enthusiastic. I know what those types of games are capable of. We're just not anywhere close to that. So in the meantime, I'll settle for the single player experiences. But the multiplayer stuff, that is the main reason I kind of steer clear of them. That kind of ties into Star Citizen. We finally have an update on that. So Chris Roberts, you know, despite what I've said about the game in the past, I've also said, just like Elite Dangerous, I'm not a fanboy for one over the other. They're both space games. They both have histories that are part of my gaming growing up. With Roberts, it's the Wing Commander stuff. With Bell and Braben, well, one of them isn't involved, just Braben. It's Elite. It's Frontier, right? That first Elite game was just mind-blowing. It looks primitive now, but it was mind-blowing back then. So they're both franchises that I cut my teeth on. I love them equally. But I'm realistic about Star Citizen. And this is kind of what I tell people. The problem with Star Citizen, the way I see it, is yes, they have a game plan. Yes, they made a metric crap ton of money. But the problem is they've let scope creep kind of get in there a little bit. And if you've ever done project management, scope creep is basically where you have that original objective. You write a design document around that, and it's more or less kind of set in stone what you want to do. Then new stuff comes up, new technology, new ideas, and instead of honoring what was set in stone, well, you start adding more stones. And before you know it, you're not even forget what you originally had, you can't keep pace with the stones that you're adding and placing. That is scope creep. And I think that's what's happened a little bit with Star Citizen. I know they're reining it in, and, there's times where they do a better job than they do a worse job, but there is a scope creep problem. So virtual reality was supported at some point. And that was kind of the purpose of the question here, because the interviewer wanted to ask, first it was some eye tracking peripheral, but he wanted to know about virtual reality. And Robert's answer was, look, we want to make sure, and if you check out the video, so I'm going to have it in the link below, jump to the 27-minute mark. And he basically says that as far as his developers are concerned, it's procedural world generation, those types of things. All game implementations, though, are being done with VR in mind. They just want to make sure that all the base level engine stuff is there before they revisit VR. Otherwise, you're going to have this constant cycle of new feature, or VR works, new feature, VR broken. Fix VR, new feature, VR broken, etc. And that's just a waste of resources and time. So they're going to go about it. And I take him at face value on that. It does genuinely seem like something he wants to do. Look, it'd be easy for him to come out and say, based on the adoption rate of VR currently, we have no plans on VR, because it's such a small percentage of the 100 and something million people, or revenue dollars that he's raised. It wouldn't be hard for him to say that. He wouldn't be alienating a lot of people with that. So I take him at face value when he says their plan is to include VR. Now, as long, and the key was what he said, as long as they are implementing features with VR in mind, if they're truly doing that, there shouldn't be an issue, and we will see that down the road. So kind of like with all the MMO stuff and the social VR stuff, the reason I don't talk about Star Citizen a lot, compared to how much I chat about Elite Dangerous, is that it's simply not ready for prime time. Are they making strides? Hell yeah. Are some of those strides amazing? Hell yeah. And it's going to have its own set of advantages. The biggest difference between it and Elite Dangerous is with Elite Dangerous, you've got more of a randomly generated massive universe with, millions of iterations. There's star systems for the entire kind of Milky Way galaxy. Each system is based on only so many templates. So the graphics look okay, but they potentially will never look as good as, say, Star Citizens, where they've got a set number of systems. I can't remember what it is. I know it's in the double digits, low triple. I want to say 60 to 110, somewhere in there. They can handcraft the programmers. And if you don't know much about programming, that's the easiest way to explain it. They are going to handcraft because that system is always going to be that system. Whereas with Elite Dangerous, there's more random and procedural elements in kind of the world where they've got templates for everything. And when you go into a system, it just takes one of those out of the drawer and boom, there you go. With Star Citizen, each system is going to have probably amazing eye candy and be really different. But the negative there, depends on what your perception of a negative is, there won't be as many. There's going to be less systems. But are you going to visit a million systems in Elite Dangerous anyways? Probably not. It would, in fact, take you a while to probably hit the triple digits, right? Well, not with rare trade runs, but I digress. So yeah, love Star Citizen, love MMOs. We need to get to a point, for me to get excited, there's got to be something to be excited about. And while I'll try indie stuff, nothing has wowed me anywhere as much as the actual games, EverQuest, WoW, over on the PC. I haven't seen anything like that in VR yet. We'll get there. It's going to come. We're just not there yet. So yeah, that's Star Citizen and MMOs in a nutshell. I like them. We're just not there yet. Vive Pro. This one was interesting. So, update today from Alvin. And, you know, I've talked about Daniel O'Brien. Well, Alvin, every bit like Daniel in the sense that they're ready to do customer service. I would say if it wasn't for those two back in the beginning when I was having those issues, kind of being the VR evangelists, if you will, I may not have kept my Vive. That's how frustrated I was and how disappointed I was. And they single-handedly swept in, not just started me on the course of this channel, but made things right. So yeah, anytime Alvin has something, I pay attention. And of course, he was featuring the Vive Pro. This is where it gets interesting. We know about the release, and sorry guys, I'm going to bring this up, but we had a good chuckle over on VR Roundtable because the guys, to a person, I think there was only one who didn't. Yeah, there was one who didn't. The others all sold their Vives in expectation of getting a Vive Pro with the entire new bundle, having the base stations. Then we found out it was going to be a staggered release. Well, we know today comfortably we're going to get the Vive Pro headset standalone. Then later in the year, we're going to get the 2.0 base stations, the newer ones, those lighthouses. We'll get the updated camera or the controllers. Let's talk about those controllers for a second. This is kind of a little bit of a irritant for me. So we know already that they're not going to release the knuckle controllers. It's just going to be a slightly updated Vive Wand. And when I say slightly updated, I mean slightly updated. It's basically just sensors that are capable of communicating with the new base stations, and that's it. No other fixes, not even cosmetic ones. How hard would it have been to fix the grip buttons? Anybody else annoyed by those grip buttons like me? You got to do the crab pincer thing just to be able to hold the controller and activate the grip at the same time. And when you're doing an RPG, that's basically how you start feeling, right? Like you're some kind of crustacean. It's just awkward. They can fix that, and they should have fixed it. So really disappointed that that wasn't addressed, that they didn't at least change the grip button on the Vive Wand. It would have been easy to do. Just change the location. But from a cost point of view, it makes sense because they can reuse most of that original plastic cast, right, that mold, and crank them out without having to kind of reinvest and change all of that. But from a customer goodwill and kind of getting into new functionality, it would have been nice to see the wand support that. The other thing we found out today, is what those cameras are actually for. So there was a lot of speculation. And could they still be used for augmented reality things? Yeah, they could. But specifically, they're used for object detection and basic hand tracking. And that's it. Full stop. That's the intent behind those two cameras. So, not to say that won't be interesting. There's probably some innovative stuff that could come out of that. But I hate to bring up this example all the time, but it is the exact same thing I always mention. If there's not enough people, you get that 3DS second analog nub higher processor effect where nobody's going to program for it because the majority of people don't have that. And we're only talking hundreds of thousands of Vive units to begin with. How many are going to purchase that? It's just not going to be worth it for the first while at least. Nobody's going to create anything for that. Whereas the cosmetic change for the grip buttons, that is something that could have benefited people right away. So yeah, that's what the camera's for. And first quarter is when we can expect the HMD. End of the year at some point. I'm thinking the last quarter of the calendar year for the holiday season when we get the entire bundle. Well, guys, that is it for VR Raw episode 10. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow for VR Roundup. Hope you guys had a great start to the week. Monday's over. We'll catch you guys on Tuesday. As always, guys, cheers.